so excited to share with you that I am finally ready and able to get to work on this beauty that I got for $5. And when it's finished, I want to put it in my dining room. So I will be sure to film that so you can see her in her new home. I had a couple of weeks where I had a great big piece taking up my whole garage that I was doing for some friends / clients who needed a giant storage piece. And so this little girl had to wait her turn. And we spent the weekend clearing out the space so that I can make it all dusty again when I start to sand on it. So my plan of attack with this is I'm gonna have to take the sander to it and try to get some, at least the poly, you know, the varnish, it's probably varnish because the piece is a little older, off of it so that it will accept a new finish. Stain is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to start by sanding it down, which will give you some video of that, although not the whole thing because, you know, it's kind of like watching paint dry or grass grow. Not very exciting. And once I get it sanded down, then I'm going to go ahead and start trying out the new finish on it to see how it's going to look. There are some boo-boos on it that are going to have to be filled, and hopefully some of the scratches will get sanded away. So we'll be sure to film those little things as they come up so you can kind of see how I try to deal with them, and we'll find out sometimes what works on one piece doesn't always work on another. So we'll see where it goes. But I wanted to give you a quick video here with a little bit of an update to kind of pick up where I left off on the video I did previously, which was just telling you the story of finding this piece. So if you haven't seen that video, make sure you check it out. And if you want more tips and tricks just kind of to do with anything design or redesign, make sure you visit theredesignhabit.com and let's get going on this piece. Hey everybody, I'm getting ready to start on my hutch today, and the first thing that I always do before I get started with any sanding or cleaning is remove the hardware from the piece. And that's super easy to do. The handles are usually just attached by screws on the back side of your door or your drawer, and you're going to want to take those off and put them someplace safe. So what I suggest is just use a baggie to keep your handles and screws and sometimes hinges, if you have hinges, and those screws in a baggie. And if you can, if you have hinges and screws, hinges and handles, you might want to screw a couple of the screws back into the loose handle so that you can tell which screw goes to what thing, and you're not trying to screw the wrong screw into a hinge that belongs to a handle and vice versa. So just a way to keep things straight, use your baggies. Now, if you happen to have more than one piece you're working on and they're different, make sure you label your baggie. I've done that before. I used to do a lot of pieces at one time, and it's a nightmare trying to keep track of what goes to what. So make sure you mark your stuff, you know, Hutch or end table or whatever it is, so that we, you know, later when you go to put it together, it's not a guessing game for 20 minutes about which goes to what. Anyway, so I'm just going to unscrew this screw from back here. Super easy. Whoops. Maybe. We'll see. Come on out. The screwdrivers I like to use, they're just little things like this. It's just a little handheld Phillips, and it's got a magnet. This is magnetized, so it will hold on to your screw for you, which is kind of a bonus. Anyway, done. Put it in the baggie. Now I've got all the drawers are done. I have to take the hardware off of my door, and then I'm going to start sanding. So I'll see you there. Hey everybody, so I started sanding on my piece, and you can see this trim right here. I've actually got it sanded down to the wood. It's going to be pretty when it's restained. It's got pretty grain in it. And to do this, I'm using it's called a palm sander. And this one's a Craftsman. And they run about 40, 50 bucks. And you just put your sheet of sandpaper on here. There's little clamps that hold it on. It's loud, so I'm not going to turn it on, but it's super easy to use. And of course, it fits in the palm of your hand. That's why it's called a palm sander. And I sand almost everything I do with a palm sander, except for some weird corners where I might use, they make sanders just like this, but they have a triangle. So if you can afford it and you think you're going to do a piece or, multiple pieces, it's worth the investment. I use it all the time. So, but anyway, I've started the process. It's going to be time consuming. But it's going to be beautiful when it's done. So I just wanted to give you a little update on what it looks like as I start the sanding. See you in the next one.
How's it going?
Hey! So, I'm choking myself on my mask. Which, by the way, wear a good mask when you're sanding. And if you have breathing issues like asthma or bronchitis or something like that, you might need to get one of the even heavier duty masks. But make sure you mask up when you're sanding because the stuff goes everywhere. It's going well. You can see over here, I got all the trim sanded, and then down here, I'm not going to sand it down anymore. I just got the top coat off. I don't want to sand away the ridges, obviously. So this side's about done. And then if you come over here, if you look at the top, like right here, this is a damaged spot, but the beauty of sanding it down is once I sand this, that will be gone. And there were other scratches up here too, but they're disappearing because I'm sanding, so. Just a quick little insert here on my palm sander. If you know tools, you probably realize that there's a little attachment here where you can hook a little vacuum bag up and it supposedly catches your sawdust. However, I found when I do these great big pieces that little tiny bag fills up immediately, and so I'm spending a ridiculous amount of time disconnecting it and dumping it, and disconnecting it and dumping it. And on top of that, it doesn't catch all the sawdust. Sawdust will still come out of the sides of the sander. So I opt not to use it, and then I just have to use a shop vac and broom to clean up my sawdust that gets all over everything. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. If you're looking for one and you go to purchase one, you're going to notice some have that option of the little vacuum bag. And it does work okay for smaller projects, but bigger ones, you spend a lot of time emptying it, obviously, because you generate a lot of sawdust and it fills up very quickly. Okay, so here's the other update that I was going to share with you. So you can see here the door, and it's also got the texture and the ridgy pattern on it. So I sanded it down just like I did the ends on the big piece. And it's a little dusty yet, obviously, but I sanded it down so it would take stain, but I couldn't sand it all the way down like this or I would lose all the pattern. So I got that done, and the edges. And then I've done 3 of the drawers. There are 6, and they're basically the same story, right? So I've completely sanded down the trim and then just roughed this up so it's going to take my stain. And then I wanted to tell you about the shelves. So if you look in here, there were 2 shelves here, and I thought they were fixed in place, but we looked at it yesterday and hubby's like, they're not fixed in place. They're screwed from the bottom into these little, everybody's seen the little brackets you can put in the holes, like when you buy an IKEA piece where you can move the shelves. And they were little pieces like that, but instead of it just sitting on it, it actually takes a screw from the bottom, so it's more secure. So I took those out because this was the top, and I was going to have to sand all that, but this was the bottom. So the piece on the bottom, which isn't unusual because you can't see it, wasn't finished. So I wanted to turn them upside down and stain the part that I don't have to sand. It saves me sanding time. So I did the front edge, which is going to show, and this was already bare, and so I can sand that, or sorry, not sand, I'm getting myself all confused. Stain that when I stain everything, and I don't have to sand it, so yay. So as far as inside this piece goes, it's going to be really hard to get it sanded down bare, and because it's inside the piece, I'm going to treat it much like this and just get the gloss off so that it will take the stain. So that's really what I have left to sand on here, and it's not going to look any different than these do. It's just going to be a big mess. But so I have that left, 3 drawers. Then I get dust. Look, poof, it's like magic. And then I get to stain. So welcome to another update on my Hutch. I wanted to share with you that after like 5 or 6 hours of sanding, I've gotten the outside done. And you can see from this end that I did it exactly the same way I did on the other side. So you saw that in the other update where I just took the top coat off here because I don't want to lose that texture. And then got all the trim sanded. And then if you come over and you look at the front, I've got the trim all sanded down as well. And I'm going to cross here quick in front of the camera so you can see that this, instead of being just a straight shape from the corner down to the floor, it's got this really nice taper on both sides of these supports that give it a unique look and shape instead of just being a big square or rectangle shape. And so that shows up a little more now that it's been sanded down, and it's kind of a cool feature. But you can see that the outside's all done. Now I'm going to come back with another update in a little bit where I talk about, I took these shelves out. I'm going to show you why. And I'm going to show you the door, which I sanded down, and a drawer. I've done 3, but I'm only going to show you 1 because they all look the same. So we'll come back with another update so you can see those things, and pretty soon I get to start staining. As you can see, I've added stain now, and I love the top, I love the fronts, but what I discovered as I sanded everything was the piece is made up of different kinds of wood, and so whatever wood you have underneath is going to affect how your stain color looks. And you can see by looking inside here where I added stain, it's got a very red undertone to it, so it almost looks like cherry, which I don't like, and I don't really have that in my house. This is going to go in my dining room, and so I want to figure out how to solve for that. So one thing I might try is antiquing over it with some paint and stain mixed together, and then doing a faux grain on the inside, because I want the option of being able to have this open for display by sliding the door over here. Otherwise, I wouldn't care. If I were going to keep this closed all the time, it wouldn't make any difference. Now, if you look down here on the end of the piece where I've also stained, I'm not too disappointed in this. It's got a slight red to it, but nothing like the inside of the cabinet. So I think these all tie together quite nicely. And you can see we've got some real crazy grain going on the edges. So that's the character I'm always talking about, but I like it. I think it's fun. So I wanted to give you a quick update, and once I figure out what I'm doing with the doors and how the inside of this is working, I'll get back to you with another update. Hey everybody, welcome to my final video on this piece. So there have been many, and luckily for you, it'll all be put together in one nice, neat little package so you're not opening 50 different videos. But this is the final update. And as you can see, it now is in the house, no longer in the garage, which is a good sign. It was a bit of a challenge getting it in the house because it's very heavy. So that was its own challenge, and I won't bore you with the details, but suffice it to say, it was not as easy as I'd hoped it would be, but it's in here now, and I love it. So you can see by looking at it, I did do a little distressing on it, and very mild distressing along the edges. As you can see, my cameraman hubby over there showing you. And then around the edges of the drawers. And then also down these legs and across the bottom. And the reason I ended up doing that was it helps give the piece some definition. So before I did all that, it just looked kind of like a big brown block. But this adds character to it. It's already a somewhat distressed piece by nature because it was older and it had some dings that I couldn't fix. So instead of fighting that, I decided to go with it. And, you know, it's not crazy over the top, but... So what's really cool is I've now gained 4 drawers of storage. I had 2 in my old piece. Now I have 6. And that's good and bad, right? Because I can store a lot more stuff, but that means I can also accumulate a lot more stuff. Because, you know, who can have empty drawers? And then we got the shelves secured back in here. They're not going anywhere. And I wanted to use that for display. And then you can see when you look through here, we took the back off on this side. So the piece is very solid, and a lot of times those backs are put on to help give the piece stability. But this is rock solid without it, so I decided to take it off. And the reason was the piece was made out of masonite, which is a very thin wood with kind of a shiny finish to it, and it doesn't take stain really well. It kind of bubbles up and it just looks weird, and you go over it and it still doesn't look any better. So we just took it off. So problem solved. So you may be asking yourself, if you've been watching this video from the beginning, whatever happened to the door that's supposed to be put on the cabinet? Well, here it is. It's finished. It turned out really cool. It's got its new hardware on it. Unfortunately, when we went to put it on the cabinet, we realized that the track in here is bent. And so it binds up the door. It won't let it move from side to side. But, you know, I'm okay with that because I love the way the drawers look on here, and I like seeing them. And I also love the way the display cabinet side looks on here. And if I were to hang the door on here, one side or the other would always be covered up. So, you know, I can't use it on here, but it's a great piece, so I'm going to find something else I can do with it rather than get rid of it. Maybe a piece of wall art or something like that. We'll shoot a video of that when that time comes, after inspiration hits. So, very pleased with how the piece came out. You know, it was a super fun project, and I'm going to say just one more time because I can't help it. $5. I got this beauty for $5. So don't be afraid when you're in places. Look around. Can you fix it? Does it have a shot? And a lot of times if they're trying to move inventory, they'll give you a better deal than they already have on it. I've done it before in Salvation Army and Goodwill and now Habitat. So don't be afraid to ask. The worst they can say to you is, no, that's the price, and then you either want it or you don't. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching this, and check out my other videos that are posted. Don't forget to go to my website, theredesignhabit.com. Lots of blogs and tips and tricks there. And we will see you in the next video.